Hello, and welcome to Child Development 195, Chapter 4, Adult Learning and Planning for Teacher Development. In this chapter, we are going to examine effective ways to support adult development and learning stages of teacher development and how they relate to practice. The practice of mentoring is going to also be explored. So in this chapter, we're really looking at the parts of adult learning. So how do adults learn? And what is the best way in which you as a mentor can help the teacher that you're working with, your mentee, in this process. So we're going to reflect on your image of an adult as a learner. So remember, they're not children learning, they're adults learning, so that's a little different. Understanding adult development, we're going to get into some Erikson and Vygotsky and so forth, Maslow and everything. Understand learning theories. There's going to be information there to create a professional development plan with a teacher, and I'm going to go over that a little bit later, of course, and then engaging in a cycle of planning, which there's actually some modules to talk about that as well, and then identify some professional development features. So the PD in here is the PD, the initials, of course, stand for professional development. All right. So we're going to be focusing on two main aspects of the mentoring process in this chapter. One is the stages of teacher development. So we've talked about this in previous chapters, but the fact of a new teacher, somebody fresh out, or they 1 or 2 years into it, then your teachers that are 3 to 5 years into it, and then 5 generally plus years in those different stages, which we'll talk about, and there's actually some names for those stages and so forth. And then the stages of adult development. So we're going to go over some of the the Erikson information, because he goes from trust versus mistrust there in those first 2 years of life, all the way up through a person's lifespan. So we're going to discuss those, and in many of our child development classes we don't get into the the ones past adolescence, the stages past adolescence, but today we will talk about that a little bit. Studies back up the fact that when teachers participate in effective professional development, both the teacher and children are positively influenced. So there's quite a bit of information in this chapter about some of the research that has gone into that, and shows that if we're doing effective professional development with teachers, then the children also benefit from that. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about like that. I mean, I could see that 100%. If you've got a teacher going to workshops, to conferences, to things like that, they're always hopefully bringing something back. They're just not going to say, oh, I want to, go stay over in a hotel or something like that. No, they're hopefully actually bringing something back to the classroom. And that's the way I've seen it, in the past with every place that I've worked. Intensive and sequenced professional development is more effective than the standalone trainings or activities. So, for instance, going to like a conference where it's the CAEYC, the California Association for the Education of Young Children, going to a big conference like that, where you might focus on, okay, I'm going to really focus on maybe language development and get all of the different activities and workshops and so forth that focus around language development, or something that would go over several weeks, like the PITC training, which is for the infant toddler care, the continuity care and everything that's discussed in PITC. And with that training, it goes over many weeks, and is generally done at a site, and everybody participates in it together. And I know we've done that before at our site, our San Marcos site, and that has worked out really well for our staff. Teachers need to be involved in sustained learning. So as we know, in this field, as probably with almost all fields, but for sure within our field, that we just don't say, okay, I'm taking my 12 units and then that's it, I'm done, I'm not taking any more classes, I'm not going to any other workshops, I've learned all that I can learn and that's it. That's not what is important, and that is not what is recommended, and it's not what is quality. So we want to definitely talk about some involvement in some sustained learning, so taking it on for an extended period of time. In this, the effective professional development, this is a really good little chart, and you know what, I'm sorry, I'm going to pause for just 1 second, but you guys are going to hear me, so I'm sorry about this. And of course, my squeaky chair, I got my squeaky chair again. But I'm going to close the window because the crickets are really loud outside. So hold on. I'm sorry. I did not know if you... And then I have to start all over again and everything else. Anyway, sorry about that pause. I realized that, I was just going to, have the window open. But our crickets are really, really loud outside tonight. And I don't know if you could hear that or not on here. But I'm not stopping this now and going back. So anyway, I'm just going to close the window. Okay? Sorry about that. Life in the Studienka house. Okay, so back to effective professional development. And this is where some of that research has brought about these 6 different areas to show if we want effective professional development, we need to have these parts, these components included. The National Staff Development Council's extensive review of professional development approaches found that a mentoring program that lasted from 30 to 100 hours, conducted over 6 to 12 months, boosted teaching effectiveness, especially when it was based on individual understanding of a teacher's practices. High quality mentoring aligns with best practices of effective teacher education. In addition, when mentoring is combined with group seminars, peer networks, or other forms of professional learning community activities, it results in even greater increase in teacher knowledge and enhanced child learning. So those are the things I was kind of talking about before. And there's, we'll get to those here in just a second. So for instance, are you going to mentoring somebody 30 to 100 hours? Is it something that you're going to be observing them on a regular basis? So for instance, when it comes to our student teaching classes, it kind of varies a little bit, but it's all around, give or take, 50 hours. That the students would be, that you would be mentoring with one of the student teachers. So that's pretty intensive. It's 3+ hours per week. It goes on for not quite 6 months, but in the way that we have it set up at Palomar, if a student teacher takes, for instance, the 201 in the fall and then follows it up and they're graduating with one of their degrees or certificate, for instance, the preschool teacher, the infant toddler, or the early inclusion, then they'd be taking a 202 or a 203 or a 204 in the spring semester. So when students do that, they're in that classroom for approximately 8 months, and I try to place them with the same group of children and so forth, so they are able to really get to know the teacher gets to know them, their learning styles, and the way in which the student teacher or the teacher, the mentee, and so forth it needs additional help in and so forth. So it's one of those things that the way that we've set it up now at Palomar College, it works out really well for those students who are in the classroom for that whole year, and by the end of the time they're like, oh, I'm really gonna miss all the kids. So anyway, so we want those intensive ongoing trainings and to be part of that mentor-teacher relationship for an extended period of time. It should be active learning is connected to practice in a community, so we want to make sure that what they're learning and how they're learning it, that they're actually able to implement it and so forth. Connected to goals and standards, so goals for the teacher, maybe goals for the classroom, goals for the children and so forth, and standards. But generally speaking, what are the goals for the teacher with the mentor? Sequenced and coherent with related curriculum resources. In fact, I buy books all the time myself. So I just bought a book on sensory because I was getting another book on Amazon for something else, and I was like, oh, it's for nutrition stuff, and I saw the sensory book. I was like, oh, that looks like a really cool book, and of course it was pretty inexpensive. I got it just a couple days ago. I was like, oh yeah, this is a really good book. So curriculum resources are extremely important. Expert facilitation of content with feedback and modeling. So again, a mentor needs to be somebody who really has been around for an extended period of time in order to be able to mentor and give that feedback and show that modeling. In fact, we talked about some different modeling things at our staff meeting at the lab school. And then relevant and rigorous content. So for the most part, most of you are going to be, if you participate with the student teachers and so forth, that relevant and rigorous content would come from most likely the classroom situation. Okay? All right. Effective mentoring, or mentoring as effective professional development. So the studies show quite a bit, which we talked about briefly, but Fine had 2 small groups of infant and toddler teachers, and one group received mentoring and the other group did not. The group that received the mentoring showed statistically significant improvement on the ITERS, which is the Environmental Rating Scale for infants and toddlers, the Infant-Toddler Environmental Rating Scale. Areas of learning activities, sensitivity, and appropriate discipline and routines. So people who are mentored did better on the environmental rating scale, which is extremely important, especially if you're in a funded program, or you're in another program that is looking at that, for instance, like a Preschool for All, QPI type of program. Some of those are county funded and so forth. So anyway, if you're in that type of program, you need to earn those higher scores on the environmental rating scale. So that would make a lot of sense. So the more professional development, the mentoring they get to show, to model and show appropriate classroom environments for their environmental rating scale would definitely improve a new teacher in the field. There's also the California Early Childhood Mentor Program, and Palomar College is part of this program, which I did not realize until I actually read this chapter. I was like, oh my gosh, it's the largest in the nation and primarily provides support for early education teachers and administrators who are enrolled in community college courses, which I knew, but I didn't realize it was the largest in the nation. I was like, wow, that is great. So we have, sorry, squeaky chair. We have, that's what we're hoping for, is that you will become a mentor teacher, part of this mentor teacher program, which we're going to go over in the last portion of this class. So don't worry, we're going to hit it. And if you become a mentor teacher, that's some of the hope with you taking this class, the 195 class, not only to be able to supervise adults, but also to mentor others out in the field. And if you participate in the mentor teacher program, you can earn hundreds and up to thousands of dollars over the course of time as mentees or teachers are placed with you. Those would be our student teachers. So anyway, it's a win-win situation, and we'll talk about this later too. Is even as a mentor, you're learning all the time as well. So you learn from the student teachers, and then of course the student teachers learn from you, and so forth. So California Early Childhood Mentor Program, great program. Excuse me, had a yawn. But I just didn't realize it was the largest in the nation, so I thought that was pretty interesting. One study also focused on lower staff turnover, and if you've worked in a center for an extended period of time, you know that staff turnover can be a real significant problem in some places. And if you have that high staff turnover, you know that it's not quality. You know that the children are not getting all that they need, because they're like, who's going to be here tomorrow? Who's going to be here tomorrow? Or my teacher know you're leaving. So we want to make sure we keep the good staff that we have, and we can do that a lot by making sure that we have appropriate mentorships out there at our sites. Okay, so you're just getting like everything from me tonight. Sorry. Vanderbilt University created a practice-based coaching, which is the video. I put the word video on there to remind you that you should have been watching the video in the media information at the beginning of this module, at the beginning of the module for Chapter 4. So if you didn't watch the short video there on practice-based coaching, make sure that you do. But practice-based coaching involves shared teacher-coach or teacher-mentor goal, planning, and action steps, focused observation, and the use of data to guide reflection, feedback on teaching, and the provision of general support over time. So please watch that video. We might be talking again about practice-based coaching a couple other times in the class. Oh, that's right. I do have the resource for you. I'm sorry. I'm going to write that down. I think I forgot to put a a resource there for you on practice-based coaching, so I will make sure that I get that up there, okay? All right, so some really good information out that on that, and there's a lot of videos and a lot of information on practice-based coaching. So once you watch the little video that I posted there, if you're interested in it, there's definitely more resources that you can find on it. Okay. All right, Lillian Katz. If you don't know Lillian Katz, she's been around for quite a while, and she does a lot in our field. And she suggests that teachers go through stages of professional development, which I agree 110%. Okay, so and I just copied down kind of these big chunks that are actually in your textbook as well. So I'm not going to read through it word for word necessarily, but we're going to talk about it here. Okay, so the lifespan and teacher development stages. Lillian Katz suggests that teachers go through stages of professional development. That first one would be that survival emerging teacher stage. So, you know, this is where there's a lot of daily challenges. You feel like you're pretty much inadequate or ill-prepared on a regular basis. You're like, basically, I always kind of call it, you know, keeping your head above water. You're barely keeping your head above water. You're like, okay, all right, I finished that. Okay, yes, I can do that. Yeah, okay, yeah, what do I do with this? It's anything from, you know, learning the program policies and procedures, how do you even record meal counts for, you know, if you're in some state funded programs. What is it that you need? Do you need, you know, I've had some people that barely take hardly any curriculum classes at all once they go through the student teaching courses, because it depends on the way in which they're taking the student teaching class. So there's different prerequisites for different people and different degrees and certificates. And there's some that hardly have any curriculum classes at all. They might just have one class, maybe like the 185, but it doesn't have all the math and science, the art, the music and movement, the language and lit. If you get all of those classes, if you get those 4 curriculum classes plus the 185, you're in a pretty good boat. When I finished up with my degree, my bachelor's degree in child development, that was one of the things that I was like, okay, I had basically one curriculum class. It was kind of like our 185 class, which just kind of goes over everything. But I got out in the field and I was like, I need activities. I have some here with this one book, but I don't have a whole heck of a lot. So how do I do math and science? How do I do this? How do I do that? Where at Palomar, I mean, you get a whole semester on it. So you get a whole semester on how to do art with young children, how to do math and science and music and movement activities and so forth. And you don't have to be good at math and science to take the math and science class, and you don't have to know how to sing in order to take the music and movement class. So anyway, so basically, literally, I went out, and this was long before, you know, Amazon and internet ordering and everything, but I went to a couple teacher stores. I was like, I need books. And a couple really good resources, Griffin House and Red Leaf Press, if you're not familiar with those. So Griffin House, GRYPHONHOUS, and then Red Leaf Press. And if you put in like for early childhood and so forth, then those should pop up. And they have some really, really great resources, and that's why I started ordering from right away. It took a while to get the books, you know, a few days. It wasn't like Amazon overnight like they do now. But got the books, and so I finally felt like, okay, I can do this. Okay, I've got some language activities. I got some math activities. I got more than just that first little, you know, grouping. So survival stage, you're really just emerging into that teacher stage. You're really just trying to survive. And I can tell you, you know, how many nights I was preparing activities at home. I remember that distinctly. All right, our next stage is that consolidation stage. And this is where you're able to meet the needs of the children on a regular basis. And you're feeling like, okay, you know, and I would say probably starting in year 3, definitely those first 2 years, you're pretty much in that survival stage. Even part of year 3, you could very well be as well. But starting year 3, year 4, this is where you're pretty much kind of figuring it out. You become more effective in this stage, and really, you know, not feeling as overwhelmed with everything, and really liking to find new ideas, and then implementing things in different ways too. So, okay, well, I tried this for a year or two in this way. This worked, but maybe I could do it better. And that's really more time to reflect, going, okay, why, how I did this Play-Doh activity or this sensory activity last time around, that kind of worked, but, maybe it's the group of children I was with. Maybe it's the ages that I was working with at the time or whatnot. But you're starting to reflect on things. You're considering maybe some new roles, new ways to contribute, maybe helping out other teachers and so forth, just, even just pretty minimally to start with, but you're thinking, yeah, I can do this, and this is great. I love it. I love what I do, and I want to learn more, even more. And then that last stage is that renewal and maturity stage. So this is where you really start to look for some new ideas that spark curiosity. This is where, I kind of equate it to this. The going to one of the conferences, like the California Association for the Education of Young Children, the CAEYC or the CAEYC. I remember going there as a student and as my first year out in the field, and I was definitely in the survival stage. I was going to every single workshop on like curriculum stuff, like, oh my gosh, I need this, I need this, I need that, I need this, I need this. Going to the big area where they were selling everything. I'm sorry, the vendor area. Sorry, the vendor area. And I was just trying to, get as much as I could. Of course, I couldn't afford hardly anything, but I was trying to get as much as I could, the freebie stuff and everything. How can I use this and so forth? And then, going the consolidation stage, sorry. In that stage, going to those conferences, it was more along the lines of, okay, well, I don't need every single thing at in the vendor area. I can be a little more picky and choose appropriately. Choose really what I need, and then going to the workshops, it's kind of maybe a little bit more balanced. Like, ooh, I really like that, but maybe I'll go a little bit deeper into it. And then I know for sure, as I've over the years, as I've gone to the conferences, the CAEYC and so forth, or even the national ones, getting into that renewal and maturity stages of teaching, then I'm really picky. So I go around, especially at the vendors, I'm not taking every single catalog that they have. I'm taking ones that, okay, how is this going to really apply to me? Am I going to be able to share it with my students? Could I share it with the lab school? How is that going to work? So, it's one of those things that, and then really like, I might ask a lot more questions. So tell me how this works. Show me how this goes and so forth. Because, you're sparking that new curiosity. You're also not going to be intimidated or defensive. You're going to be on that track of, okay, I pretty much, I feel confident in knowing what I'm talking about. I'm not an I'm never going to be perfect or anything like that, but feel a little bit more confident with what I'm saying, and probably feel a little bit more confident with, parent-teacher conferences and things along those lines, okay? All right, so stages of teacher development. Where are you at? Where are you at in these, out of these 3 stages? Okay. Oh, looks like some of my pop-up things worked okay, but maybe not as well as I thought. But Erikson's adult psychosocial stages. Remember Erikson, he was a student of Freud, and if you've been in any of my classes before, you know that Freud is, okay. I'm not a big fan of Freud. But Erikson, on the other hand, I think as a Freud student, he took something from Freud and then made it his own and made it really appropriate. So throughout all our lives, we go through conflicts that must be resolved. Remember those first stages, the trust versus mistrust. Either you build trust in the adults that are working with you, your mom, your dad, grandmas and grandpas and siblings and all those things. Do you have trust that somebody's going to be their caregivers, of course? Or is it building up mistrust where you're not feeling that somebody's going to be there if you cry, that somebody's going to be there to pick you up? If a conflict's not resolved, remember we kind of remain in that stage of development before we can move on to the next stage. So with all those stages, any of the stage theorists, we're looking at going from one stage to the next, to the next, to the next, okay? So if you never build up that sense of trust when you were a young child, an infant or a young child, then you might have some issues with trust as an adult. So, and I'm going to guess that we probably all know some people out there who have issues of trust. So maybe look back to their, their infancy and so forth to see how that played out for them. How do teachers and mentors fall into these stages? So let's let us find out. So we've got our stages here. I put all the stages on there, but like I said, most of the time once we get up to that identity versus role confusion, I know we talk about that in Child Development 100 in the Growth and Development course. So we talk about that in there. But then after that, we pretty much kind of go, yeah, and then there's some others. Because we don't care about it as much when we're focusing on early child and so forth. But the young adults, the intimacy versus isolation. So young adults seeking companionship and love or becoming isolated from others because they fear rejection or disappointment. So kind of like if your heart's been broken, are you going to go out there and find somebody else for you? Maybe, maybe not. It takes them cycles before you get to that point of going, okay, yes, am I going to be able to trust somebody in this relationship and so forth. And then generativity versus stagnation. So this is the middle-aged adults contributing to the next generation through meaningful work, creative ideas, and or raising a family, or they stagnate. So are they feeling like they're being productive and being part of society, or just, I'm just here, I'm just going along with it, okay? And then integrity versus despair, and these are when we get to our older adults, in more of the senior years, trying to make sense out of their lives, either seeing their life as meaningful, whole, or despairing that the goals that they never reach. So I'm sure that we've met people in our lives over the course of time that have that we've seen all of those areas in. If you've ever talked to them, oh, I really wish I would have done that, or I really wish I would have done that. Well, is there anything that says you really can't do it right now? You never know, right? So anyway, so we've got our stages. So when you are a mentor, what stage are you in? And then when you're working with a teacher, what stage are they in? Okay. And remember, if we haven't gotten past some of these earlier ones in early childhood, they might still be back, in the initiative versus guilt phase, where, are they adventuresome and adventurous, or are they going to take some risk in the classroom? Good guided risk, meaning like, ooh, an activity. Maybe it's a cooking activity. Maybe we've never done a cooking activity, right? So taking some risk with that, or just like, oh no, I can't do that, no. Or, oh, I really wish I would have, but I didn't, and so forth, right? Okay. Erikson. Don't forget about Erikson. Neuroscience and emotional intelligence. The next slide has a picture of 7 pictures of a woman's face. Same woman, just different facial expressions. Do your best to read her facial expression and list what emotion she's feeling. So this is something that, not right now, I'll tell you when here in a couple seconds, but when you pop on the slide, you're going to need to pause it, okay? So pause, get ready to, hit the pause button. Move your cursor over to the little pause thing here in a couple seconds, so get ready to do that. Because you're going to read the facial expression. It's going to take a few minutes, okay? So read the facial expression and list what type of emotion you think that she is feeling. Write down your responses on a piece of paper. It'll just be a scratch piece of paper. Pause the lecture video. So again, like I said, I'm going to say pause it here because I can't really pause my end of this part of it, so I can't, just say, oh, I'm going to pause it for a period of time. So I'll give you probably at least 5 seconds or so before I move on to the next slide. So that'll give you enough time to pause it before I go on to the next slide to give you the answers, okay? Because it's one of those things. Test yourself. See where you're at, okay? See if you can get this. All right. And I want to make sure I'm not, yes. The slide after, like I said, was going to give you the answers. See how close you come to getting them all right. And then there's actually the whole entire article for this emotional intelligence and the emotional, this article on the emotions, that is on Canvas, and you will be able to find it there in the module for this week. Okay. All right. So I'm going to click on the next slide here, and then I'm going to wait about 10 seconds or so. I can hear the fan on my computer at that point in time, more so than hear it now. Anyway, so you're going to pause it and write down how you feel, what emotion she's feeling due to her facial expression. Okay? Okay, I'm going to click on the next slide here. So hopefully you've paused it. All right, hopefully, welcome back. Welcome back. All right, so let's see how close you got. So again, you might want to pause it to see where you fell here on the different slides. So the first one was neutral, second one was happy, sad, fearful, angry, surprised, and disgusted. So between the, most of us can, the happy, sad, the angry, we can pretty much get. The fearful, surprised, and disgusted sometimes gets a little, say, could be a little more difficult to read. But if you thought that somebody was in the happy, right? If you said happy or excited or something like that for the person who might be sad or angry, then maybe your emotional intelligence, that might be something that maybe you could work on a little bit. Okay. All right. If you want to pause it now, you can. If you want to go through those to see where you're at. All right. I'm going to move on. Why is the ability to read someone's emotions so important? Well, a wide variety of reasons. But since we're social beings, our emotional intelligence is extremely important when we're building our mentor to teacher relationship, when we're building that relationship together. When we use our emotional intelligence, we're more likely to understand messages being sent. So I use an example, that next question, can you read someone easily? My first experience, I might have shared this before, I think I might have. I kind of get confused as to what I share in which class and not at different points in time in the semester. But anyway, so the one of my what happened there? Oh, that was weird. I don't know what happened. Sorry about that. But it popped back up, so I think we're okay. Anyway, so I had a supervisor, my very first full-time job as the lead teacher in the classroom, and she was a person, her name was Kate, I think I said, and she was just so hard to read. So, I was trying to read her, but it was on her end that I was having a difficult time reading her because her facial expression was kind of like that first one of like, no, just indifferent, nothing there. So, for instance, arms, I use these two things, arms crossed, hands on the hip. So, I will, if I see teachers standing around with their arms crossed or their hands on their hip, both of those things I make note of. And, I go over and I usually give some feedback on. It's not like, I'm criticizing someone to the nth degree or anything along those lines, but it's just like, is everything okay today? So if somebody's got their arms crossed, is everything okay today? Or even the hands on their hips. How are you feeling today? Is there something I can do for you? And they might say, oh, no. And I said, well, I just noticed maybe and I noticed your arms were crossed, and it looks like maybe you're kind of closed off today, or maybe you're upset about something, or you're not really, open to being out there to work with the children and so forth. And, sometimes it's just, I'm cold. And that's why my hands crossed. Or many times it's like, I don't know what to do with my hands. I'm a person that puts them behind my back quite a bit. So, because I like to be open, I like to not have those arms crossed. Hands on the hip, again, is another one. It's a little more standoffish. It's a little like, hey, what's going on here? What are you doing? Kind of a thing. And, have we all put our hands on our hips? Of course we have. And are we going to in the future? Yes. But a few years ago, I had a student teacher. This was a few years ago. I had a student teacher, and she always put her hands on her hip, like just all the time. It was just her go-to place. And over the course of the year, she worked on it. She really did. She worked hard on it. And she's like, I'm just so excited. I'm not doing it as much. And she was noticing it on her own. So again, can you read someone? Those might be two things in which you look at in order to see how somebody's feeling. But those two, I kind of think, in my opinion, really have no place in the classroom with young children because, again, they're not the most positive stances in which you could take. So I believe in putting your hands behind your back, just put them at your side, maybe just lightly crossed in front of you in the sense of like maybe your fingers just touching that thing, not crossed, but you could be touching in front of you, that kind of thing, but definitely not the arms crossed. All right. Those good old learning theories. So we've got some of the learning theories. We're going to talk about those guys here in a few seconds, and I'm saying guys because right now they are the men that we were talking about. But learning is constant across the lifespan. Every minute of every day, we're taking in information through all of our senses. We're processing it in our brain, and we're learning something about it. There's definitely an art and science, though, to teaching adults. Some foundational ideas on adult learning. So Malcolm Knowles focused on the art and science of teaching adults, or androgyny, and characterized adult learners as extremely self-directed and not ready to comply with only program goals or standards. So is somebody really, a self-directed learner? Some are not. Have ample resources to meet their own learning and resent being seen as blank slates. So remember our guy John Locke? He thought that children were just blank slates and they were just those miniature adults, and we could just pour stuff into them, pour all this knowledge into them, and they would just get it. But we learned over the course of time, of course, that children are not blank slates, and neither are adults, of course, and we need to see them, of course, as being individuals, and we need to meet their own learning styles. Motivated by the needs and interests from their jobs or family or other social roles. So, hey, I really want to do well in this because of this or this or this. I know many times we have some students that, I'm coming back to college. I've been out of it. I'm showing my, 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old that, even mom can come back to college or dad can come back to college and get an education and graduate, in hopes that they're motivated and seeing that for their children to also follow in their footsteps. So in the classroom, I want to do better in my job. Hopefully that's something that they would want to do. Interested in learning that can be applied to their life tomorrow morning. So I want stuff that I can use now, not stuff that it's going to take me forever to create or to make or to do. I want to do it now. And then focused on solving relevant and real-world problems. And of course, as you know, if you've been in any classroom for any any part of the day, there are real-world problems each and every day in the classroom. Any of these ideas ring true? Do they ring true to you or not? Do you see yourself looking at adult learners in these ways? Or maybe you can relate some of this to yourself as well. All right, when we go to these learning theories, we're also, the book also talks about Howard Gardner. Hopefully, by this time in your educational career, you've heard of Howard Gardner and his multiple intelligences. He started with 7, he got 8 after a period of time. He's a professor at Harvard, and I'm not 100% sure, as far as I know, I don't think he's retired as of yet, but I'm not 100% sure on that one. And there's a video that I put in the media information, so hopefully you watched Howard. It's, I don't know, 7-8 minute video. You watched Howard there and explaining and talking about his multiple intelligence theory. If you, I'm one of those people that do believe in Howard's theories, how we best learn. For years they've always said, are you an auditory learner? Are you a visual learner? Are you a kinesthetic learner? Do you learn, of course, audio? Do you just, some people can just hear it and they get it, and then they're able to understand it, they're able to learn it. That's why sometimes you'll literally see some people, in class never taking any notes whatsoever, never writing anything down, and they get straight A's on all their tests because they tend to be an auditory. Now that's only works well though when the teacher is talking a lot, right? The teacher has a lot to say, so then they would be getting it in that way. If you've got the visual learner, then you're probably writing things down, but definitely, you want to see it. So that's why you want to write it again. You want to read it. You want to read it up on the board. You want to, not necessarily listen as much, but you're taking it in through your visual sense, and you are learning in that way. And then the kinesthetic learner is the one who has to be doing something. Finally, those fidget things and everything that came out on the market not too long ago, that some children and everything, I'm sure in some early childhood, but let's say elementary school classrooms, that I'm sure they've probably been banned and things along those lines. But those things can really help some people that are the kinesthetic learners. So they need to learn by doing. So if they're fidgeting with something in their hand, I always say, give them Play-Doh. But I love the fidgets because that's what we've needed all along for some of these kids. So are they the kinesthetic learner? So the one who has to be even just manipulating something with their hand, or maybe the one that's rocking in the chair, that's moving their leg up and down, that kind of thing. So those three we've had around for quite a while, but of course he expands it out into other areas. Interpersonal, intrapersonal, personal, musical side, musical intelligence, and so forth. So he's got other ones there. So you might be able to see yourself in one. We tend to be a little bit more one than the others. But we all have a little bit of everything in there. Okay, and then Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we're going to talk about here in just a second. I've got a slide to show you, but remember those basic needs must be met first. And then our last theorist that we're going to talk about here in a couple seconds is Vygotsky, the sociocultural theory, and we're going to talk about scaffolding and zone of proximal development. So let me go through some slides here with the actual hierarchy of needs. So with Maslow, remember we have to have those basic things like hunger and thirst met before we go on to, before we're able to learn. If we don't have, if we're talking about hungry, like being hungry and thirsty, like not having, having food insecurity, that kind of thing, not knowing if, there is going to be a meal coming or not. I'm not just talking about, I'm hungry in the sense that, I haven't eaten in 3 hours and, my stomach's starting to growl. Okay, I need to go get something to eat. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about actually being, not knowing where your next meal is going to come from. Safety, need to feel that the world's organized, predictable, feel safe, secure, and stable. So with any and all of world disasters that come around our way, whether it be earthquakes or floods or, hurricanes or other natural disasters or even, terrorism, man-made type of disasters, if you don't feel safe and secure and stable, then you're not going to be able to learn. So you might be, not be hungry or thirsty, but maybe you don't know exactly where you're going to be staying that night. So again, you wouldn't be able to learn if you didn't have that safety. Love and belonging, we need to be feeling accepted and belonging to someone, family situations and so forth. We don't want to be lonely or alienated. And then if we get that, then we build on to self-esteem. So achievement, competence, independence, need for recognition and respect from others. And then if we finally make it up to self-actualization, that need to live to one's fullest and unique potential. So as a teacher, as a mentor, you're probably going to be in step 4 and 5, okay? So that's where you would want to definitely be as a mentor, somewhere in there. And any of these things, so for instance, like if, even if you're at self-actualization, you're at step 5, but, there's a big flood or a fire, wildfires or whatever might come through, and your house is burned down, or it's, it's buried under 3 feet of mud. You go back down to, to that very first level. You're like, okay, I can't think about learning new things if I'm just worried about, where I'm going to stay, what kind of food am I going to get, and so forth. Okay, so so relaying this back to the class, you as a mentor need to see where you're at on here, as well as where is the teacher coming from also. Okay. And then we have our beautiful zone of proximal development from our Lev Vygotsky, that the Russian who was discovered after he died. His work was discovered after he died. But, scaffolding, there's 2 things. One, scaffolding, so in which we need to, build learning from one level to the next level to the next level and so forth. So we want to scaffold with a child, so we're not going to give them, oh, here's your shoe, put it on and tie it, before we, just even get their fine motor skills working. Or can they put their sock on first? And that comes in, so we've got to build from those previous skills, those early skills, onto more complex skills with the scaffolding. And then the zone of proximal development, So, the zone is really what the learner could understand with guidance, to teach. Do teach? Exciting? Is it challenging? The learner, what does our learner already know? So, for instance, if you know you get signed up for a math class and they're still on, simple addition and multiplication, you're like, yeah, I kind of already know this, right? That would be really boring. And you'd be like, okay, why am I here? I'm wasting my time. We've probably all sat in something where we thought, okay, I'm just wasting my time here. And that might even be some of those conferences I was talking about before. I remember sitting in a few going, okay, I feel like I'm wasting my time here because I kind of already, already know some of this stuff. I'd like to be challenged in a new way. So the learner, we need to already know what the learner knows. So you don't know in this mentor relationship until you get to work with the person a little bit longer, right? That we're going to talk about the professional development plan here in a couple seconds. So you have to, plan it out. Okay, what do you know? What don't you know? What do you want to know? Because, if they're like, oh yeah, I went to art school for 3 years and I totally understand process versus product and I understand what children need for art. Well, you're not going to necessarily maybe bring in more art activities, right? Make sense? So that zone, what the learner could understand with guidance, when we're talking about teaching, is it exciting? Is it challenging? It's like, ooh, that sounds neat. Ooh, yeah, I'd like to work on that. So are they in the zone? I kind of go back to this also with young children. If we go back to that shoe example, so being able to tie their shoelaces and so forth, that's usually around, later 5, early 6s, maybe even up to 7s. That's somewhere usually in the zone because they have enough fine motor skills in order to do that. Now, are there some 2-year-olds out there that could tie their shoelaces? Probably miraculously there could. Okay, I don't know of any. I've noticed some 2-year-olds being able to really read and make words out and so forth, but not the shoelace thing. But I'm sure out there in the world there's some 2-year-old that can tie their own shoelaces. But that's really out of the zone, right? So we want to make it, it would be much too difficult. It would be in that blue realm if we tried to teach 2-year-olds how to tie shoes because they just don't have that capability. So, but if we start, with, even 2-year-olds watching us put their shoes and socks on and so forth, I think you always are really great at taking them off. So that's a first step in that process too. At 3-year-olds, can they start putting on their socks? If we put the sock over their little toes, are they able to pull it up? So we got to get them to work with those fine motor skills. Are they able to put their shoes on, but maybe not tie them yet? And then they start tying those like 20 knots in a row. They're working on it, but they're not quite there yet. All right, so that zone of proximal development. So as a teacher, we need to know where as a mentor, we need to know where the teacher's at and where they're going to move on to next. So we don't want something too difficult for them, but yet not too boring. Okay? All right, facilitating change. Oh my goodness, change can be very difficult, right? It can be really difficult to change someone's practices and views. I can go over this quite a bit right now with my mom. So my mom, I love my mom. She lives close by. She lives about 5-10 minutes away. But she broke her hip not too long ago. And she's fine. She's good. She, all feeling well. Everything's really good. But she's been using a walker, and she hasn't really got up to the cane yet. She is able to drive, and I went out to the parking lot with her too. So I made sure that she was safe driving. So just because she has a walker doesn't mean that she's not able to be safe on the road. But I did test her out. So test her out in the parking lot and make sure that she was safe to go. But so think about when it comes to the walker. So I'm just using this as an example. She's got this really big purse, and I don't know, maybe your mom or your grandma or somebody has the really big purse, and she's got to like carry everything under the sun in it. And I'm like, Mom, you can't carry your purse and be on the walker at the same time. Like it's like tipping her over, that kind of thing. So it's really hard to change her. I'm like, Mom, what if we just get like you just need like a little pocketbook kind of thing. Like you only need, one credit card, maybe some cash, your ID, but you don't need, everybody's medical card under the sun or, all your little appointment cards and everything in there. Let's cut that back. So anyway, but it's really hard to change her mind on that. She just really is stuck to that purse. So facilitating change can be really difficult, especially if we're in this mentor relationship with somebody and maybe they're not as welcoming to that, you know. For instance, I can think of some of student teachers over the course of time. They're like, oh, I've been teaching for 15 years in the field. Now I just have to take this class because it's part of the thing and I want to get my degree, but I really don't want to take this class because I feel like I know it all. And it's amazing though, over the course of time, most of them do realize like, oh yeah, I am learning something new. Oh yeah, this is a good class to take. But sometimes that change can be really difficult to come by for some people. Now other people are like, hey, myself personally, I like the world changes all the time, you know. We have to be flexible with it. We have to go with it, go with the flow. You know, things are going to change on a regular basis. Empowerment is more than simple affirmations, so we want to go beyond that. Fryer's ideas about empowerment are a sort of affirmation that the participants have the ability to make a difference in their life, in the life of another adult, if they remember these 3 ideas. So, these 3 ideas that we are equal to the learner, okay? And I believe in that 100%. You know, everybody has their strengths, their weaknesses, and everything else, but you know, we're all learning in this process. And I might just know a little bit more in this area or a little bit more in that area, but you probably know more in this area or that area that you could teach me too, right? So we're equals in this. A problem poser who partners with and facilitates the examination of issues of importance to the adult. So what's really important? What are you having the problems with? What's important to you, so I can make sure I can help you figure that out, and we can work on it together. Because I don't know about you, but I know if I've got a problem and I brainstorm something, and it'll be like, oh yeah, I hadn't thought of that, right? It might just even be, you know, putting together a schedule for the day with your family, and well, what if I took this and I did that, and I took this person there and I did this and I did that, and then somebody else might come up and say, well, what if we just did this? And I'm like, oh, many times that's happened. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a really great idea. But we examine the issues together. Supporting reflection plus action in a setting, which may transform the learner's thinking. So again, talking about change, and hopefully that person opens up and goes, oh yeah, you know, that is a really good idea. And then wanting to change and we're supporting that action as well at the same time. In addition to, you must first establish a relationship. So, you know, just trying to get my mom to change her purse situation. I have a relationship, of course, with my mom, but it can be difficult. So if you just met somebody, you know, how are you going to change their mind about something? You know, they've been doing it this way for 15 years, and now you want to change it, and well, you have to build that relationship first. That's a really important part of it. Discussion of goals, objectives, expectations, purpose, and strategies to be used. So we want to discuss these things, not, you know, overly discuss them, but we definitely need to get them out and air it out, and try to make sure that we're both on the same page. Mentors and teachers need to see themselves as co-learners and be willing to collaborate with each other in order to be successful in the mentoring process. So if we're not working together, it's just not going to be a successful mentorship. Mentoring as effective professional development requires the adult educator to understand the development continues throughout the human lifespan. We're always going to be developing, okay? Uncovering mentor assumptions and images of the adult learner are essential if intentional, effective, and strength-based planning for individualized professional development is to occur. So again, we have to know that this is an adult learner, and I have to make sure that we're working together. It's intentional. We want to focus on the strengths and plan it together, and plan as things occur and as they develop. Then our plans might change too in that sense. All right, getting towards the end here. What's your image of the adult learner? So there are several things here with the adult learner, and do you see yourself in some of these? So, you know, I'm not going to read through all of them, but what's your image of the adult learner? So where do you see the adult? And you can see we've got Reggio, we've got Knowles, we've got Locke, we've got Skinner, we've got Erickson. So we got lots of different theorists here. And the other one's supposed to be Maslow, which I can tell is a typo there. So, how do you see the adult learner? And you might feel more, that the intellectual and emotion, the relationship side of it is really what's the most important. Others might be feeling a little bit more that, rich ideas wanting to grow, the learner's needs, interests, and experiences must be valued. So look at that list if you haven't already and see exactly where you think, where you kind of see yourself thinking of an adult as a learner, okay? And if you need to pause it, go ahead and pause it. What's the role of the mentor? And on page 93, you could see that. Where do you see yourself on this list? I'm just going to hit a couple here. Pick your top two. So again, page 93, the top of page 93, the mentor is, and then it gives us a whole list. For myself, I think of that partner, a partner with the learner, listen, poses problems, facilitates observation, and the critical dialogue to uncover and examine issues. So we have to talk about it, we have to ask questions about it, and so forth, is the goal to empower the learner. And also the expert who sets goals and directs the learning. So especially when we're talking about the student teaching situations and so forth, how we are how we're setting goals together in the class, and what exactly how the class is configured and is set up in order for the students to go out and learn. With the mentor, the teaching side of that part for the student teachers is, for instance, for me, like I've changed things multiple times over the course of the years. So, things are never exactly the same. Some of it might be similar. Don't start off, recreating the wheel each and every semester, but things definitely change each and every time I teach a class. And then that little bit, look at that little reflection on the bottom of page 93. So think about your own professional journey. Where did you start? What are the various roles you have played, and where are you now? So, if you read my bio thing on the there, if you click my picture and you get to see the bio thing and everything. Anyway, you'll see that I kind of give my list as to where I've started. And I started off in a licensed family childcare, so I started off there in high school, as you might know, and then worked my way in a whole wide variety of programs as I was going to college, and then getting into Head Start and working in Head Start, working in some private programs, some for-profit, non-profit, a whole wide variety, but getting into Head Start and then getting to the lab school as a teacher in room 3, which is with our 2.5, 3-year-olds and so forth, really enjoying that. And then I was getting to that point of being ready to move on to becoming a site supervisor, finally the coordinator at the lab school, and then in addition to teaching classes, and then finally full-time in the child development department. So it's one of those things that over the course of time, I can definitely where I'm at today is not where I was 20 years ago, getting into the field, or even longer. Anyway, reflecting times in your career in which you found yourself at a crossroads. Oh yeah, definitely. I can remember being at one site and going, okay, I can tell this is definitely not the place for me, so I'm going to, it's not like I wanted to really leave the children and all, but I could tell that, the philosophy and everything was definitely not the same. And so I was having some major struggles with that site. Did I have any guides or mentors that helped me professionally? Yes, definitely. I remember one person I'll never forget. I was in a meeting at Head Start, and I had met. I was down in San Diego. We were down in San Diego at this meeting, and somebody told me about the about my master's degree program. I'm like, what? Really? Because that's what I really want to do. That's where I see myself. And so if I hadn't seen that person on that day, and if she wouldn't have mentored me in that, in that little bit of way, and then of course, over the course of time, I built a relationship with her, and in fact, I literally just saw her like about 6 months ago, at a meeting, that we had, and at one point in time she actually worked under me. So she worked, meaning I was a department chair in the child development department, and she was a faculty member, a part-time faculty member in the department. But I just saw her at a meeting not too long ago, and you know, she's still in the field and still doing, I'm sure, a great job mentoring other people. So and then, like I said, what did they do? It was important. She was really guiding me with my education, which I was really happy about. Have I ever been a guide? I assume so. Overall, the course of this time, I assume so. So anyway, so a little bit of reflection there. So you might want to take a look at that reflection and think about it, how you could answer those questions on your own. Okay. All right. And then this chapter finally talks about that professional development plan, and it goes on for a few pages here. If you haven't, it's from 95 through, was it up to 98, I think it is. No, 97. And you know, going over this professional development plan, it's a little confusing. I mean, I wish they had it more in, like, say, an actual plan that you could use. But it's basically, they're giving you kind of the information that you might want to create on your own plan, or your own document, should I say. I wish they would have created an actual document here. What they say is, you know, you should plan like at least an hour of uninterrupted time to work with somebody on this. You know, where you're at, where they're at, so you can get a really good idea on where you're currently at, where you want to be, and then how we document the progress over time. So again, I feel like it's a good plan. I feel like the information on here is really good, but I think that it would be one of those things that you'd really need to create it into a document that you could both fill out. So again, they give you the information here. I would like the textbook, to have given us an actual document to be able to use. Hey, let's use this. And then once you start using it, then you might go back to and go, oh, you know what, we could really, let's change this, or let's change that. You know, make it your own, but you know, at least it's a good template. It's a good starting off spot for you, but again, not in the format in which it is presented in the textbook. All right, and then last but not least, summary. Uncovering mentor assumptions and images of the adult learner are essential if intentional, effective, and strength-based planning for individualized professional development is to occur. So don't forget that. So we talked a little bit about, you know, theories of development. We talked about the adult developmental process and so forth. So you need to keep those things all in mind as you are creating a professional development plan with a mentor teacher. And then last but not least, make sure you ask any questions on the general discussion board that relate to the chapter. This way everyone's going to have a benefit from that. And then make sure you continue to follow up with all of the other assignments in the module for this week. All right, that's it. Thank you. I'm going to do my best to shut this down now. And I will talk to you next chapter.